welcome to today's reading wrap-up. In this video, I'm going to talk about all of the books that I read in the month of November, but also all of the books that I read in the month of October because I literally got so busy and I forgot to film my wrap-up. And I think October was my best reading month out of the whole year, and it definitely deserves to be talked about. I think that's partly because in November, me and my sister, we went on a little girls trip, and we ended up going to this super cute small town, and we just like sat down and read. I actually filmed a 24-hour readathon vlog, and it's up on my channel. It's like one of my favorite videos I've ever posted. But because of that challenge, I was able to like knock out so many more books, I feel like, than I normally do. There's a lot of books in here that I absolutely loved, so let's talk about them. The first book that I read in October was Fall into Temptation. Obviously, this was like the perfect read to get me into fall. It's very much like fall vibes, and I'm very much an atmospheric kind of reader, so I was really wanting to get into like the fall kind of spirit. So I started with this. I ate up the first like 50-60% of it. The end of it kind of bothered me, kind of gave me the ick. If you don't know, this follows the story of Gianna, and she's like the definition of a baddie. She's a single mom, she's taking care of her kids, and she decides to move to this small town for a fresh start. So she starts her own business there. She starts her own yoga studio, and she's like teaching and doing everything, taking care of her kids. And then she gets involved with Beckett, who is, I'm pretty sure, the mayor of this little town, but he's kind of like the last person that she's supposed to be getting involved with. So it's kind of like not necessarily forbidden romance, but like we're really shouldn't, and they have like sneaky little moments where they sneak away from people and go make out and all of that. So it was very interesting, but at the end the guy kind of gave me the ick, and it was just kind of, I don't know, unforgivable behavior for me. I did a whole vlog on this if you want to see exactly the point where everything went downhill for me. But I think overall it was like a pretty good book for the fall. I think I gave it probably like 3 stars. The next book that I read slash listened to was Out on a Limb. I meant to read this on my flight, but then I was getting super motion sickness, like turbulence and stuff on the plane. So I went on my Libby app and I found what books I had available in the audiobook format. So I listened to it the whole duration of my flight to LA, and I absolutely ate it up. I loved it. Honestly, I'm very shocked how much I liked it because it is a pregnancy trope, like accidental pregnancy trope, and that's probably one of my least favorite tropes ever. But it was just like done so well. The guy, main character in that one, is just like such a sweetheart, so considerate. And it was also really interesting to read how pregnancy was going for her, how it was changing her body, how she was feeling, and everything like that. A lot of like little fun facts, which was pretty interesting. I loved it. I think I gave it like 4 stars or something like that. Next up, we have the books that I read while I was doing my 24-hour readathon. So I started off very strong. Anticipated release, which was The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. I feel like a lot of people have a lot of mixed opinions about Frida McFadden. I personally love her books. Are they the best thing to ever get written? No. Is there plot holes? Sure, sometimes, but they are such good palate cleansers. They're also such like really entertaining, fast-paced thrillers that get you hooked like right from the first page, and they keep you hooked the entire time. And it's usually like packed with a bunch of little plot twists all the way along. So I've read a lot of her books and do generally enjoy them quite a bit for like what they are. So it only made sense to read a Frida McFadden book on a readathon while I was trying to stay up overnight. So this one too, just like all her other books, is pretty much very fast-paced, very twisty, very dumb main character with no critical thinking skills, but all of that together makes for a pretty fun book. If you haven't heard, basically the plot of that whole book is there's this girl and she's desperate to find the guy that's the one. She's going on dating apps, and she goes on this date with this random guy, and that date goes absolutely horrible. It's literally like the worst outcome of a date when you think of like online dating. But on the way back from the date, she stumbles upon this mysterious man, and then they kind of get to know each other, and he seems to be the perfect guy. He's very sweet, he's very handsome, he's very considerate. So everything's going perfect until she finds out that there's actually a serial killer in town, and his MO is to date his victims before he unalives them. So naturally she starts to suspect her man. So very interesting read, very fun. It wasn't as plotty and as twisty and as fun as some of her other books that I read, but it was still pretty good, and I enjoyed it for what it was. I did find the ending to be a little bit rushed, and I really feel like we just need like either a part 2 or a novella or something to just like explain the ending and just get a little bit more clarification on what's going on. I would literally absolutely love a novella at the ending of that book. But overall, 4 stars. Another thriller that I read is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alex Feeney. This is a very popular, very well-known kind of book, so I was super excited to get into it. I don't know what I was expecting. I literally didn't even bother reading the back. I just saw it recommended and I saw so many people had rated it super high, so I ordered it from my library and I got to reading again during my readathon. It was like very interesting, very fast-paced, and the end had me shook. Basically the plot of the story is that there is this couple and they one day randomly win tickets to go to this little weekend getaway in the middle of the winter to Scotland from England. And this couple, they've been having problems for quite a while. They've been kind of beefing. There's some tea, there's some shade in their marriage, so they figure that this just might be what they need in order to kind of like restore their marriage and get everything kind of like sorted out. So you have our guy main character, whose name is Adam, and he is a true workaholic to the core, and then he also suffers from face blindness, so he kind of struggles to see people's like faces. It all just kind of looks kind of blurry to him, I guess. And then you have Adam's wife, and she writes him these letters every single year on their anniversary. However, she never lets him read them until now. And this was perfect for setting the vibes. It was very spooky, very wintry, like there's like a snowstorm and all kinds of stuff going around, and the ending was like super shocking, so I really enjoyed that one. Next up, I read a little novella, another new release by Ellie Hazelwood, called Two Can Play. I really like that one for it being a novella. I'm not a big fan of novellas usually because I feel like they're just kind of not long enough to really get attached to any of the characters. I tend to kind of always rate novellas at around like 3 stars. Like, I don't really know. But yeah, this was also only released an audiobook version. I don't even think there's like a paperback or a hardcover out for it. So I listened to the audiobook and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I thought it was like a fun little short and sweet story. It follows these two game devs that work together in the game dev industry. One thing about me, I love gaming. I spent like the last 4 years of my life gaming as a full-time job and streaming and all that, so it was super fun to see kind of like a nerdier kind of book, because usually when you think of like my two different hobbies, gaming and reading, they don't really like mesh well together, so this was like such a fun read. Next up, we have my first 5-star read, and that is of course the Natural series, baby. I have been obsessed with the series ever since I started it. More on that later, but I finally get around to reading the first book, which has been on my TBR for the longest freaking time ever, and I literally devoured it in one day. If you don't know, the Natural series follows the story of these teenagers. It's like a YA, and they each have their own super special abilities. So that could be they're either naturally good at reading people or profiling people or memorizing like statistics, definitions, and all of that. One of them is like naturally gifted at being able to tell when people are lying. So basically the FBI tracks down all these like gifted kids and recruits them and puts them in the Naturals program, where they get trained by the FBI to kind of hone in on their skills, then later be used by the FBI to solve the cold cases. So if you enjoy Criminal Minds, you're gonna love this one. Think of like Spencer Reed, except they're all teenagers and they all have their own little special ability. I absolutely loved it. Also, as I'm sure you would expect, some of the cases get kind of involved with the teens' like personal lives. I'm not gonna say anymore because I don't want to spoil anything. Each of the kids also has their own personalities as well. It's not just like different abilities, but there's such an interesting like group of characters and I love all of them. There's also a love triangle, which I'm usually a big love triangle hater, but it's just like done so well, and just read it, okay? Just read it. So yeah, this was like 100% a 5-star read. I cannot wait to finish the whole series. I keep hearing that the series gets better with every book. I haven't finished it yet. There's reading vlogs coming up of me reading the rest of it, so stay tuned for all of that. But yeah, absolutely loved it. Next up, we have another thriller. This is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This was my first time reading anything by Riley Sager, so I literally was not sure what to expect. And then I got into the book and I thought it was really interesting, and I started reading it, which basically follows the story of this actress who is kind of going through some stuff. So she gets away from the city and goes to her little like lake house, and nobody really lives there. It's just very chill, very quiet. She can kind of like relax, be away from cameras, be away from paparazzi, and just kind of deal with whatever's going on in her life right now. So she's just chilling, minding her business, until one day she sees some sus stuff going on from the house across the lake. So the couple that lives right across the lake, it's like the super rich tech guy and his wife, who used to be a model. So then naturally, as you do, she just grabs a pair of binoculars and starts spying on them, watching them from across the lake into their house, until one day she finds herself investigating the disappearance and possible murder of the wife of the guy that lives across the lake. The only catch is that this girl has a little problem, a little drinking problem, and struggles with addiction. So it's kind of hard to know what we can trust, what we cannot trust, what's really going on, is she really a reliable source? And yeah, this book took me for a freaking turn. I don't know what I was expecting. Like, I thought I had a good understanding of where the story was going, and then I was like, bam, you did not think about this one, I guarantee it. So it was very interesting. I don't know how much I like the twist and how much I feel like it fits into the story, but it was very twisty and it was very shocking. So if that seems like your kind of vibe, give it a read. I rated that one like 3.5 stars, I think, just because it was like a little bit repetitive and like not as fast paced as the other books that I had read recently, so I felt kind of like slow in comparison. Next up, I read The Quiet Tenant. First of all, side note, I bought this book full price for like $27 at the bookstore, and then 2 days later I found this copy at a thrift store for $2. So I returned the first one, and yeah, this one is literally in perfect condition. So this is your sign to check thrift stores and libraries and all of that, because you do not need to be buying every single book ever. And I'm really glad, because I did not end up enjoying this as much as I wanted to. It basically follows the story of Aiden, who is living in a small town with his daughter. However, homeboy has a couple secrets, because there's a girl that he has kidnapped and is currently staying in the shed in his backyard. And according to the back, in his time he has already killed 8 different women, and he's about to kill the 9th because he is required to move houses. However, last minute he decides that he in fact does not need to kill her, and he's just gonna bring her with and have her live in his house and pretend to be a random roommate, a random tenant, and she's gonna live there with his daughter. This book was very interesting because it was not told from the perspectives that you normally think. Okay, it was told from the perspective of Rachel, who's the girl that is kidnapped. It was told from his daughter's POV, who obviously like doesn't know that he's a freaking monster. So it was interesting to see how she thinks of him and how she sees him. And it was also told from the POV of this random girl in the town that has a crush on him, and they're kind of like flirting, kind of talking, casually like dating. So it was like told from all these different women in his life. So it was very interesting. However, I think I didn't really love the writing. It felt like it was very long, like too many words for the amount of plot, if that makes sense. Like the plot could have definitely been described in a lot simpler terms. Like I felt like it was maybe like a little bit repetitive. I don't really know exactly what my beef was with this one. This was also the last thriller that I read after reading 5 other thrillers in a row because I was doing a whole like reading thrillers for a week kind of video. So maybe I was like thrillered out, if that makes sense. So maybe if I had read it at a different time, I would have enjoyed it more. But yeah, this also just gave me like kind of like very dark vibes. Like it did not make me like feel good, and it's like it's a thriller, it's not supposed to make you feel good, you know what I mean? But the other thrillers that I read, I felt like more disconnected from. I was like, okay, this is like obviously made up, you know, these are not real people. But this one kind of hurt my heart, my little heart. So if you're sensitive or an empath, I don't know, maybe don't read this one. Okay, so that's all the books that I read in October. Now moving on to the books that I read in November. Okay, I started off strong with reading The Striker. This was one of my most anticipated releases ever because I'm a big Anna Wong stan. She's basically like one of my auto-buy authors at this point, so I was very excited to get into the story. But then, why is it 600 pages? Why do we have a romance that's 600 pages? It's a little much. It's a little much. This basically follows the story of Usher and Scarlett. So Usher is a professional footballer that lives in the UK. Scarlett is his biggest rival's little sister. So she's like a former ballerina. She was like going pro with it or something, but then she got into an accident and got injured, and she has not been able to perform ever since. But she's still very much like involved in ballet, and she teaches it at this college, like pretty high level. So where do these connect? Let's talk about it. So we have Usher and Scarlett's brother, and they have been beefing. They're on the same team and they're always fighting, and like they need to work on their teamwork. So then their coach, after they lose a very important game, basically forces them both to go and get training done by this ballerina, because apparently there's different ballet techniques that you can learn and they can be helpful to other sports, I guess. I don't really know. So they basically get tasked to, the 3 of them, train together with her kind of like coaching them through certain like different routines. So the premise of this is very interesting. You have forbidden romance, you have like rival's little sister, you have like forced proximity and all of that. So it was very interesting, and I did think that like it wasn't bad. Like I actually quite enjoyed it. A lot of people DNF this book at around like the 40% mark maybe, and I can see why, because it's definitely very like slow moving. But for me personally, the second half kind of makes it worth. Would I have preferred this to be shrunk down to like maybe 400 pages? definitely yes, I do think 600 is definitely a little excessive for this kind of story, but I did enjoy it. 4 stars. Then I started reading Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I read probably like about half of that, and then I kind of DNF'd it. I just like didn't really care, to be honest. Like, I only picked it up as like an atmospheric kind of vibey read, like we're in the fall and I just wanted to read like a fall vibes sort of thing, but I don't think I got far enough in the story to like get attached to the characters or get crazy like invested in their love story. Like, I just didn't really care. I was just reading it for the vibes, and then eventually I just like completely forgot all about it and just started reading other books. So I didn't have that one, but you know, it wasn't bad by any means. It's just like I was just like like whatever, it was fine. Then I read 4 books for a specific YouTube video where booktubers and book content creators choose my reads. I'm not gonna go into too much detail because like I said, there's like a whole detailed vlog of me like reading all the books and my reactions and my rating and final thoughts. But the books that I read were The Bonus, Mad About You, The X Vows, and Play Along. Out of all of these, the only book that I'm going to talk about is Play Along because I absolutely ate this up. This was a 6-star read for me. I think this legitimately might be my top read of the year, and you might think I'm exaggerating, but literally, do you see the amount of tabs that are going on in here? I annotated so much of this. I was honestly very shocked with how much I like this because I already ate up book 2 of the series. I thought that was gonna be by far my favorite book of the series. I was obsessed with it. Brian Shea is like top 5 of my book boyfriends of like all time. So the fact that in the same series I would get yet another 10 out of 10, I was very shocked, very shocked. This I think is like literally the exact recipe of a perfect book for me. I absolutely love their dynamic. I loved the main characters. I loved the story. I loved the setting. I loved literally everything about it. So let's talk about it. This book and also this whole series is a sports romance. So this specific book follows Isaiah and Kennedy. So Isaiah is part of Chicago's professional baseball team. So he's a professional baseball player. And then you have Kennedy, and she is a doctor for this team. So she goes to their games, treats the players if they get injured on the game. And basically in all the books so far, it has been mentioned how Isaiah is literally obsessed with Kennedy. He has the biggest crush on her, and he's always like flirting with her and like making like poking fun, like being super fun and playful with her. But Kennedy's always like shutting him down. First of all, she's engaged. She has like big fat freaking ring on her finger, but also she's like very professional, and she does not want to be like undermined on her job and like be seen as unprofessional for getting involved with any of the players. So she literally never talks to any of them outside of work, never hangs out with them. They invite her to go places and like celebrate after games and stuff like that. She literally never does anything like that until one day they both coincidentally happen to be in Vegas. She's there for somebody's bachelorette party, and Isaiah's there as like a team bonding with all the guys, and they bump into each other and they agree to have a drink, and then they agree to have a couple other drinks, and eventually they end up married. Yup. So naturally she starts freaking out, and they're like, we have to get this annulled as soon as possible. But when she gets back, she realizes that she cannot just admit that she married somebody from the team while she was drunk, because she will get fired. You're not allowed to casually hook up with the players on the team. So they basically decide to pretend to be fake married, or stay married and like fake date basically, or refake whatever couple in front of everybody so that she can keep her job. However, the way Isaiah sees this, he's like, oh my god, this is the best opportunity ever, because now I get the chance to spend time with her and show her what I'm like and get her to fall in love with me. So he's very like girl crazy. He's obsessed with her. He will do anything. He will literally like kiss the ground that she walks on, and I ate it up. Also, Isaiah is very much like golden retriever energy, which is my favorite kind of book boyfriends. Like, I don't like grumpy men. Like, they're fun to read about, but when it comes to like real life and stuff, I love a good golden retriever. Like, always the life of the party, always making everyone smile, always making everyone happy, making everyone laugh, and I just absolutely love it. Also, Isaiah has kind of like his own problems that he has been dealing with his whole life, so we get a little bit more depth into that as well. So it's Such a sweet, heartfelt story. I love it. 6 stars. If you want to see my reactions to the other books of the series, like I said, I'll link the video down below. Comment down below how many books you read this month, which ones have been your favorites, or if you read any of the books that I mentioned, what you thought of them, what you rated them, or if you have a book suggestion, if you think we have similar tastes, let a girl know. But that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, because I'm daily posting for bookmas for the first 12 days of December, and I would love to have you join the fam. Follow all my socials, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.